Welcome in. It's the January 9th mailbag. The regular season is over. We got 272 games in the books, 13 playoff games to go, and 6 coaching openings. We might not be done. There might be a 7th coaching opening. We'll see what happens in Dallas. And a lot of you guys' questions this week were focused on what's going to happen with the coaching carousel over the course of the next couple of weeks. So we're going to dive right into that with a question from Robbie Andrew. That's at Rise Open Eyes. Robbie asks, who is the best coaching option for the Chicago Bears to change the culture and get Caleb on the right track and win some games? Choose one. Okay, so I think you got to go back to the firing of Matt Eberflus, which happened on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and where they were at then. And I think correctly, they looked at it and said, we need a leader of men. We need somebody who's going to develop more than one position or one player. We need somebody who's going to work with the entire building to try to establish what we are. Sort of like what the Lions got when they hired Dan Campbell, which was on the advice largely of Chris Spielman, who told ownership, like, this is what you need to do. You need to establish an identity. The Bears have been really bad at that, over the course of the last 15 years. Again, they haven't won a playoff game since 2010. And they've been through, I believe it's 4 coaches, going from Lovie Smith to Mark Trestman to John Fox to Matt Nagy to Matt Eberflus, and 3 general managers, going from Phil Emery to Ryan Pace to Ryan Poles. A lot of those measures were to, I think, fix the previous problem. You go from offense to defense, experience to less experience. And so I think what they need is somebody to come in there and reestablish a culture and an identity for the Chicago Bears. That's why I think Mike Vrabel and Aaron Glenn were so attractive to them in the first place. Then they go through the rest of the season, the 6 weeks that were left. Caleb Williams is up and down and all over the place. The offense doesn't perform. And so I think to some degree you adjust what you're looking for a little bit, where it's like whoever comes in as that leader of men is going to have a very clear plan for the offense, for the quarterback. We're going to need to see his vision on that too. So you're sort of asking for 2 things here. I think looking at Vrabel and Aaron Glenn out of the box was the right thing to do. I think both those guys would bring a lot of what you are looking for. Vrabel is a culture setter. Glenn came from Detroit, where they set the culture. Both those guys are ex-players. So you have to get the offensive plan with both those guys. I think Ben Johnson is capable of being a leader, but opposite of what Vrabel and Glenn would have to prove, where they'd have to prove they have an offensive plan. Johnson brings the offensive plan. Now he's got to prove that he can be the guy in the front of the room. And I think one thing about Ben that's missed sometimes is that he's very self-aware, and he's, comfortable in his own skin, sort of the same way Mike McDaniel is comfortable in his own skin and capable of leading his own way. And I think he knows what he doesn't know, and he'll get support in the areas where he needs it. So like those are 3 guys that I think have been at the top of a lot of lists and the top of the Bears list. And the Bears are running a very wide ranging search. I look at it and I say Vrabel would be the one, because I think Vrabel might be most capable right out of the box of hitting both of those things. If he could bring in Josh McDaniels with him, I think Tommy Reese would be on his list too, but Josh would be an interesting one for him in Chicago, working with Caleb Williams, because I think you would look at it and say, okay, this guy isn't going to be chasing the next head coaching job because he's already failed twice, with that. So he would be comfortable as potentially a long-term offensive coordinator here. I think Mike Vrabel would make a lot of sense for the Bears. I think he's a great fit for the city. He might give me crap for saying that, but I think he'd be a good fit for the city. I think he sort of looks Chicago-ish. I think he'd be the right kind of guy. But I think any of those 3 guys would do a really good job there, which is why they're in such high demand across the NFL. Question number 2 is from Chimdi Chekwa. This is actually my buddy who's a former NFL player, also former Ohio State Buckeye. So he's got a special interest in asking this question. Where does Vrabel actually end up? I think probably New England. I would keep an eye on the Raiders, though. I look at where New England is and kind of what they would be for him. And I think having a relationship with ownership is going to be important for him. This is just me talking because of what he went through in Tennessee. And having gone through that, and what a mess it was for him at the end, with ownership initially really supporting him, then kind of going back on that. There being front office politics involved in the whole thing. I think he's going to be looking for a place where he can avoid that. And I think New England can give it to him, because Robert Kraft is sort of in this emperor has no clothes situation, and I think is really, really, really wants to get back to winning. And so I think he would give Vrabel the keys. I think Vrabel would feel like he could trust him, and then you go. So I think that's probably the most likely scenario because of the relationships there. But I also think the Raiders are worth watching. And if Tom Brady could convince Mike Vrabel like that these are the new Raiders and that you won't be dealing with some of the dynamics the previous coaches were dealing with here, and that we are going to have, we talked about this in the print mailbag, go check it out on si.com. He could convince Mike Vrabel, like, we are going to have all the resources you need here. We got this CEO from Silver Lake Capital who now owns 7.5% of the team. He's going to help. I'm going to be a buffer for you. I'm going to help you with the quarterback. I don't think Brady's going to be a day-to-day guy there yet. I think it's like still a little ways out from being that. But, just as an advisor to Mark Davis, I think if he tells Mark Davis this is the guy and he puts a sell job on, he could actually have the capability of stealing him from his old team. Finally, question number 3. Greg Watson, that's at coach underscore G Watson. Is the Jets opening considered more attractive due to the fact that the GM and HC spots are open? I think this is the only advantage the Jets have to attract a top coach. Yeah, I think that is the main attraction to the Jets job right now, is that you come in and you can build it your way. What the Jets are doing, and I think this is smart with Rick Spielman and and Mike Tannenbaum leading the way, is they are searching for the best guy. It could be a coach, it could be a general manager, but they aren't running like these parallel searches where we're going to pair a head coach with a general manager. They're doing it at once. They're searching for the best guy to be sort of the head of the snake and help run the organization and be the tone setter for the organization. That could be a general manager. That could be a head coach. And the advantage that guy is going to have is what you're talking about, Greg, which is the blank slate, the opportunity to build it my way. If you're a coach, it means bringing in the GM. If you're the GM, it means bringing in a coach, or at least having major input in that. And then getting the sort of alignment that organization really has struggled to find over the years. Now, what you have to convince these guys is that they're going to be able to work with ownership, because over the last 2 decades, the issues that every coach, every general manager have had there are common. They're these same issues every single time. It looks exactly the same. But if you feel like you can manage that, like, this is an opportunity for somebody to go in there with some good young talent on the roster, with your Quinnen Williams, with your Garrett Wilson, with your Sauce Gardner, with your Quincy Williams, with your Jermaine Johnson, with your Brees Hall, with your Olu Fashanu, and say, we've got a good base of young talent here. We're going to figure out the quarterback position, and we're going to have this thing aligned and ready to go. I do think it's a real advantage, again, if you can wrap your head around a problem that has not gone away for 20 years. If you can get Woody Johnson to pledge, I'm going to let you run it. We're going to be patient. We're not going to listen to outside forces. We're not listening to the business people. We're not listening to social media. This could actually be a very attractive job for someone. And I think that someone could be somebody like Aaron Glenn. Again, he's in high demand. New Orleans, I think, is very much a possibility for him as well. But Aaron Glenn would be somebody I would really watch for the Jets. Appreciate you guys coming out. And I would urge you guys to dive into the print mailbag. That's over on the mmqb.com. Ton of great stuff there. We dive more into the Brady thing with the Raiders, which I think is really at an interesting point right now. So be sure to check that out. All the other great content that we have coming for you to preview this playoff week. I'll be in Baltimore this weekend, and tomorrow morning, Friday morning, we'll set the table for a great slate of weekend games coming up. Appreciate you guys coming out. We'll see you then.